Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team all one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play.
Here can Leisure Neil with a pass so true.
Take me home, Warwick Road. Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, a podcast focusing on the trials and tribulations of Carlisle United Football Club. From Dave Morley to Gary Medine and Clint Hill to Darren Holloway, we've got it covered. This is episode 7 and we're going to be looking ahead to the first home league game of the season against Southend United, as well as discussing the disappointing start of the season with Chris Beech's side. For this episode, I'm joined by my co-host, Dan McLennan. As ever, Dan, I have to ask you how has it gone, and most importantly, are you looking forward to finally getting back to Brunton Park this weekend?
How do? Well, first of all, we'll just double check that it is episode 7 because you did get some numbering issues on the last one. But
it is 7.
yeah, no, it's obviously we knew the club were hoping to be part of the trials, and when the 10 were announced, it wasn't really a surprise that we were one. From being at the supporters group meeting the other week, I think the club were really on top and on the ball with it, which sort of ties in with the regular updates we've had throughout the summer, doesn't it?
Definitely.
You know,
yeah, they've been really on top of it.
Yeah, I think is it 3 games have pulled out of the 10 now? Is it?
Yeah, it's 3 games. We'll come on to that.
Yeah, Luton, Morecambe, and Hull now. So
yeah,
you know that's different sizes of clubs. So it's
it just goes to show, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think Hull's issue was more that the council didn't give them approval, whereas I think with Luton and Morecambe, it was more like it's just too short a notice for us to sort it.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Hull, a League One club with a big setup like theirs, weren't organised in time with the council sorted, whereas we've had it sorted for weeks by the sound of things. So just goes to show, doesn't it? Okay, well, let's get stuck into the main part of the show. First up, let's have a general roundup of some news that's happened over the last 2 weeks or so. Okay, Dan, first up, let's look at the transfers during this period. Last few episodes have been quite busy with them, but this one, we've only got one to share with you, Ian at least, and that's young Ethan Walker, 18-year-old forward who's joined on a season-long loan from Preston North End. Early impressions, he's a tricky, sort of stocky wide player who seems to be very well thought of at Deepdale, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was involved in a pre-season game against Everton for Preston. I think it was the start of the week that he came to us, and all of a sudden he was in the car and on the way here. He's seemingly thought of, and I was listening to his interview on the official site where he sort of said, yes, I've got a contract at Preston, but we do have a big squad and there's players coming back from long term. I'm not really going to play, and you can never knock young lads who want to go out and get football,
Yeah, well, he's been their top scorer for the under-18s 2 seasons in a row, and by all accounts, he's not a central striker, so that's a pretty impressive stat in itself. But the other point you can make is a few years ago, I think it was against Aston Villa, he came on to make his debut for Preston North End, and he's their youngest ever debutant in the league, which is quite an achievement, actually, when you think of a club like that as well. Because going back in the day, they'll have had some young players playing for them in the early days, I think. So
especially being one of the founding members. And what one thing that's not really been mentioned, obviously, our backup left back Jack Armour, he'll have played with him in Preston's youth teams and reserves. So, especially for the younger lads who come on loan, I think it probably helps that there's a friendly face, helps him settle, and probably travels up with, etc.
Yeah, there was a feeling we maybe needed an extra wide player there, especially with Dickinson being out till December by the looks of things. So it should be a useful player to have in the squad. And I mean, we'll get onto the Cambridge game in a minute, which was not a fun watch at the weekend, but he probably was one of the few bright sparks when he came on. He looked lively and he had a few tricks in his back pocket. So You never know. I think it could be quite a decent sign, actually. On the way out, obviously, Charlie Birch has joined Lightfoot and Barnes at Kendal Town. A pretty straightforward one, that wasn't it? Because by all accounts, Birch was seen more as a left winger now than a left back. So with Walker coming in, it just seems to make sense to send him to Kendal till
It was interesting that he's gone for the full season, whereas the other two are just until January.
You know what? I hadn't even noticed that. That's an interesting one. That, but I wonder if there's a feeling there that it'd be one of those ones where we'll be able to recall him at some point. I'm sure.
And then I know that they still train with us through the week, and they can play bounce games, etc. So
yeah, it's one of those things.
But I would also add, though, it probably shows that yes, we have got all these young first-year pros. They're clearly not ready, are they? Charters is the exception, being in and around the team last season.
And obviously Dixon as well, yeah. Obviously he's the second year player, you can argue.
Yeah, true.
But effectively first year. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was thinking about this. With these young lads, they all signed deals in February. At that point, we looked like we were pushing ourselves towards a sort of safe position in the league. I wonder if Beach had in his mind at that point, I'm going to give these lads a few run-outs in the last few games of the season. But obviously with circumstances changing, for one, obviously coronavirus, but also the money we've got from Brantford has put us in a better position to build a decent squad this season. And those 5 young lads have probably been a bit unlucky with the circumstances in that sense, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, look, these young lads, they're cheap to take on, which, and they are backups. And I think the feeling is, if you take 4, 5, 6 young lads on, if one of them pushes on, you're doing well.
Yeah.
So it's they are a gamble, but they'll certainly learn about football playing for Kendal, because it's a rough and tough league. It's
I think
same as Reds, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they learned on their debut last week, didn't they? They got battered 5-0 by Bishop Auckland, and by all accounts, a couple of the lads didn't have the greatest of games. I heard reports that Barnes, they're saying, likes to get forward, but not sure about his defensive side of things. He'll learn the lessons there, won't they? So hopefully they'll come back stronger for the experience. And the final bit of sort of transfer news, if you want to call it that, is that fitness coach David Weldy has left the club. He's gone to Mansfield Town to do the same role. By all accounts, this seems to be a sort of location thing, isn't it, really? Because he lives in Lincoln, being ex-RAF, so it makes more sense for him to be somewhere a bit closer to home.
Yeah, by all accounts, Dave Waldy was a decent guy, and I know when he announced he was departing, he said he loved the city and whatnot, and wished everyone well, and he's certainly one who leaves with the good wishes of everyone, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that's sort of the transfer news and that sort of thing out of the way. Let's move on to the bit we're most excited about, and that's fans being back at games. So, obviously mentioned there in the introduction that fans are going to be at the game this weekend. So, the original plan, obviously, was that there was going to be a test event for our game at Cambridge last weekend. With the government's finally letting fans in, that was the plan. A few issues came up before that. That had to be binned, didn't it? It was supposed to be 2,500, wasn't it, originally, I think, for that Cambridge game?
I think they had up to 1,000 for the We Don't Talk About It trophy.
Yeah.
And they only actually sold 800 tickets, which speaks volumes.
Yeah.
But that's a separate issue. And then there were, as you said, they were meant to have 2,500, but I think the government wording changed that September would only be 1,000 full stop.
Yeah,
so,
I think the issue was they'd already sold up to 2,000.
Yeah,
and they were in a situation where, well, how do we decide which fans can go and which can't? And they thought the easiest thing to do is just not have fans there at all.
And I think it was also like, what if we can't get in touch with Joe Bloggs? He turns up expecting to come in, and then he gets knocked back,
Exactly. Okay, well, so the government are finally letting fans attend, and the 10 EFL fixtures that were picked originally included our game against Southend United at Brunton Park. We say obviously 10 because you mentioned before 3 of the clubs, Luton, Hull and Morecambe, have all dropped out. Only announced on Wednesday lunchtime. I have to say, I think the club's done brilliantly to turn this around so quickly, and it's a real testament to the planning that they've done over the last few months to actually get to this stage, isn't it, Dan? I know you've known a bit about that from the CUSG meetings.
Yeah, as I said earlier, when I was at the supporters group meeting on behalf of the message board, was it start of last week, I think it was?
Yes.
When Nigel Clibbens was speaking, the impression I got was obviously we had already put our blocks in place ready to go as and when you were allowed to apply. And I know the SAG, the Safety Advisory Group, were on board with what the club had done. And I think that's one of the key things with these test games. If you've got your local SAG on board, you are in a strong position. And look, it's working for us. You know, I mean, I know they're still working through. It's Thursday night at the moment, so they're on to edge into the end of the second week of sorting the season tickets to then have to sell tickets for the match on top. But by all accounts, it's been largely incident free. You know, I mean, I did see they put a few extra paddock tickets up, but you know, I would say it would probably be sensible to keep 10 or 15 behind just in case. You know. Yeah,
makes sense. But yeah, so just a few sort of bullet points to go through. What are the key things about this? Only 1,000 going to be allowed in the whole stadium in terms of fans. I'm not sure in terms of staff. There'll probably will be more on top of that, I would have imagined. Tickets initially on a first come first serve basis for season ticket holders only. Now this game isn't including the season ticket because it's a 22 game season ticket, as the anticipation was the Barrow game would be the first game officially that we definitely will all be able to attend. The other thing I think fans need to take into account, it's going to be a very different experience, isn't it, Dan? No alcohol will be on sale at the ground. I think there will be food, but I think it's going to be a bit of a interesting one to see how that works.
Well, with also going back to that meeting, what was in talks with, obviously this isn't confirmed and it might not happen, where we usually record in the main car park, they have the Lakeland Steaks stall.
Yes.
I do believe they were planning similar on the East Stand side, although I'm not sure where.
Yeah.
That's obviously because if they open their own food stall in the concourse, crowds are going to congregate, you know, the space isn't there. Likewise with the beer counters, etc. But they are opening the Sunset and the Sporting pre-match, although you've got to apply to go in. It'll all be distance, and I think it's table service only was the plan.
Okay.
But doesn't sound the best. But if you really want that pint before the game, it's there for you.
Well, it's a 1 o'clock kickoff as well this weekend. You've got to bear that in mind as well. So you'd imagine some people probably want to grab something before they go into the game, at least. So that might help in a sense, possibly. Hard to tell.
Yeah, and I do know that we're going to be relaxing the rules on taking items in. I know. Normally, if you take, say, a bottle or can of Coke, you're not really allowed, or the bottle top's got to be taken off. I think the plan was it would be allowed because obviously there's no food and drink knocking about, but it's going to be very much on a trust level. You know, we're letting you. Please don't ruin it. You know, it only takes one idiot to throw something, and all hell will break loose. But no, I'd like to think most of our fan base will be. It'll take a little bit of getting used to, but we want to see some football. You know,
exactly.
We've got to follow a couple of rules. So be it.
It's the first step in the process of getting back to normal ways of attending football. It's going to be a long road. It's going to be very different. Another point here, obviously, is the fact that fans need to get down early. Because it's going to be a slower process getting into the ground than it previously was.
I think the sort of message I got from the meeting was, if you turn up at 5 to kick off, don't be amazed if you don't get in till 10:05.
Yeah,
you know, you'll certainly not be able to complain about that. I mean, I'll admit I can be as guilty as anyone for that. Sometimes I'll work till 2 o'clock on a Saturday, so I don't get down till 10 to 5 to 3, but if it means I don't get in till 10 past, so be it, you know.
Yeah.
We all want to see football, don't we? So
exactly. The other one, obviously, is the fact that you must stick to your designated terrace, block or seat. There's no moving about, sit somewhere with a slightly better view or stand with a better view. That's just the reality of it. And the masks issue, obviously, I think the club have been really good with this, actually, listening to fans and taking it into consideration. You're not going to need to wear it when you're sat or stood in your place, but if you are obviously going to the toilet or something like that, you will have to wear your mask at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's common sense. I know originally, I think the plan was going to be masks at all time, but when Brighton played Chelsea in that first trial game a couple of weeks back, Brighton adopted a policy of coming in and walking about, wear your mask. when you're in your seat, you're fine, And again, it's just common sense with it all,
Well, it's similar to a bit of a comparison here, but I was up in Edinburgh for a few days this week. And when you go to the pubs there, you have to wear your mask when you go in, when you walk into your table, when you sit down, you take it off. But then if you want to go to the toilet or anything like that, you then have to put your mask back on again. It's not a difficult process to follow, and hopefully people will listen to it. And we do understand that there's probably going to be some elderly fans who maybe are exempt for medical reasons why they can't wear it. So, don't. The key thing there is for fans as well. Don't just jump to a conclusion if you see someone not wearing
definitely,
it. They may have a reason for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all good news. Hopefully, I'll be down at Brunton Park on Saturday. The 1,000 of us who've been lucky enough to get tickets. And I'm just hoping we can get a good result from the game. We'll talk about that obviously in a minute. But let's move on to looking back at the last two games. Let's lower the tone a little bit.
Do we have to?
I kind of wish we didn't. It's where do you start? So
yeah, but we'll try not to spend too much. Look forwards, not backwards.
Yeah, we'll try and do that anyway.
Yeah.
So we obviously now it's time to look back at the Oldham and Cambridge defeats, which made it 3 games played, 9 goals conceded at the start of the season. Here's a little quick clip I'm going to play now of myself and Mike talking about our predictions for the Oldham game, where I was very prescient with my thoughts. Okay, so we're both going for 2-1 win to Carlisle. We're both going to look really stupid on Monday, aren't we, when we discuss our disastrous 3-0 defeat, as it no doubt will be. So, yes, as it turned out, it was another disappointing 3-0 defeat that we saw, obviously, a week later at Cambridge as well. Obviously, we didn't talk about it on the Monday because we didn't get around to recording a review episode. Just 1 goal scored in 3 fixtures so far, 9 conceded. Is it concerns at both ends of the pitch, Dan?
On the face of it, yes. Using your head, maybe not as much. You've got to remember, it's a completely new defence by Aaron Hayden.
Yeah.
We've got a new goalkeeper and the rest of it's all new. They will take time to gel.
Yeah.
They'll take time to gel with each other, to the system the manager wants. But, yeah, we've got to admit, initial look isn't the best. But, we've got the ideal fixture this week, haven't we?
Yeah, well, obviously we'll talk about Southend in the second half. I think I agree with you there. It is the ideal fixture. A bit of a shaky start with Rob McDonald at the back, isn't it? He's one that we didn't really know was coming in pre-season. We knew all the others were coming because they'd been linked so long. He was a bit of an unexpected one. Didn't have the greatest start in the last few games. He's looked a bit rusty. But is it worth remembering that Byron Webster was the same, and also that, by all accounts, Aaron Hayden's not been 100% in the last few games as well?
Yeah, I know Chris Beach in his pre-match press conference today, he mentioned a bit about Aaron Hayden, sort of suggested it could possibly be some sort of digestive system related.
Yeah.
And obviously, apparently he was the same at Cambridge last season, so he did say it could just be the local air, but it's being looked at, and the lad isn't totally uncomfortable, but hopefully it's nothing too serious.
Yeah, well, the Rob McDonald thing was interesting because his best point in the Cambridge game was actually where I think we had an attack at one point. We had a lot of possession in the second half. We dominated that, but never really threatened that much. But he was out on the left wing for some reason. I think it was a set piece. And he beat, I think 2 or 3 times he beat men and put good balls into the box. Have we got the wrong position for him here? And I didn't expect him to be a left winger. But he's not looked the best so far. But I think the Byron Webster comparison is one worth looking at, because Webster didn't look great at the start. And I mean, hopefully he'll sort himself out a bit quicker than Webster did last season, because that took a while.
Definitely.
But Webster started to look decent towards the end of the season. So it's one maybe you need to give him a little bit more time. But if he's had a couple more tough games, you'd think Max Hunt would be knocking on the manager's door saying, hang on a second, I should be getting a look out here, because I don't care how experienced he is, he's not playing well.
Yeah, and to be fair to Hunt, he played in the Newport game, didn't he? The last game before lockdown.
Yeah.
And he played well. Was he not man of the match in one of the games at the end of the season?
I can't remember. I think he played about 3 games. He looked good on his debut. I was impressed with Oldham.
I'm sure he was man of the match in one of those games. Or certainly played very well. And he'd be within his rights to be knocking on the manager's door saying, I'm fit, I'm ready. He's not playing well. Play me.
Yeah, definitely. It's obviously not just defence that's the problem. I mean, you can look at the defence and they're not having great games, but there's maybe a little bit of a lack of protection from midfield as well. Is that a bit of a problem area, do you think? I mean, the question's already been asked about John Mellish, and I know there's this experiment that Beach is convinced that he'd make a great midfielder, but so far he's not really showing it, is he?
It's not just a midfielder, it's an attacking midfielder he sees him as, and
yeah.
I'm sorry, but on all the evidence so far, it just isn't working. And that's no slight on John Mellish. It just hasn't happened so far. There's a big difference between having a good game in a bounce game against
definitely
Middlesbrough under 19s or someone.
Or Blackpool, I think it was originally.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
you know, and doing it in the middle of a League Two football pitch. But no, Dean Furman's apparently back in the mix for this weekend.
Yeah.
And now, hopefully, if he's getting up to speed, he will be the sort of the calming influence in the middle.
You'd hope
you know,
so, wouldn't you? Yeah.
You know, like the Mike Jones role of the last couple of seasons. You know.
Yeah, it's one of those ones you look at the moment, and if it carried on for a few more games, you'd start asking questions. Why did we let Jones go? Because by all accounts, he's doing fairly well at Barrow so far, and they've been quite impressive in.
Yeah.
But maybe we need to give it more time. I think Divine's maybe been a bit unlucky to be dropped after that Fleetwood game because, like you say, Mellish hasn't really shown much so far. And there's another question: is Taylor Charters worth a look? Because actually, I thought he played pretty well when he came on against Oldham in the cup game, but is he maybe seen a little bit too inexperienced at the moment? I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of questions and not enough answers at the moment in the middle, but I think the next 2 or 3 games will hopefully go some way to getting it sorted.
I think when we're talking about midfield, obviously we've talked about more the defensive side of it so far. We can't avoid talking about the elephant in the room that just won't go away. It's a lack of... I'm not mentioning his name yet. Give me a second, right? It's the creativity issue. And I've got to say, I'm quite all right with managers generally. I think they're a bit hard done by with their interviews because when they get interviewed after the game, passions are still high. They're still processing what's happening in the game. It's difficult for them, for their view, to instantly go to the analyst and say, what's actually happened here, and give me a sort of rundown. But I would vehemently disagree with Beach and his comments about the number of shots shown we had creativity in that game against Cambridge. I watched that game and I follow, and I would say 90% of those shots were long-range efforts that were blocked about 2 yards away from where the shot was. That's I might be wrong on that, but that's the impression I got watching the game there and then.
See, that's not a shot on target for me. You know, it's...
I mean, if it is a shot, it counts in the stats. It might not have been maybe a yard, but maybe it's only got about 5 yards if it's been comfortably blocked. The keeper didn't have a say to make, really, in the game, realistically.
That's a key one. You look at how many saves your keepers had to make, and, you know, Cambridge's keeper, he won't have had to wash his kit.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, and I felt we were trying these pot shots from goal, and Alessandro really wasn't doing it as sort of the link player, really. And I don't know. I've got to mention his name, Devitt. There you go, I said it now, right? If you're not going to get him, get someone else in. There's got to be another attacking midfielder out there we could potentially bring in who will make a difference. There's plenty of places still waiting, looking for clubs. I just think at the moment, we're still lacking that player in midfield who can do that. And yeah, we mentioned his name, Devitt, right? He's not just an attacking midfielder with Devitt. That's the thing. He can play a bit deeper. He's got the work rate as well. There's maybe concerns about his injury record of the last year and a half or so. I understand that, totally understand that. But I think he would be given a bit more time than any other signing potentially.
Yeah, he's the I'm trying to think of the word to describe it as far as the fans are concerned. He's not the messiah, but you know, he's well thought of by our fan base, and you know, nobody really wanted him to go last summer, did they? So his return would be welcomed, but you know, there's all sorts of rumours flying about. His payoff with Blackpool's ready to go. There's a deal allegedly on the table at Brunton Park. The manager wants him. The manager doesn't want him.
Well,
the director of football wants him. The director of football doesn't want him. And it's got to the point where nobody believes anyone. And it's just sort of come to a stop at the moment, hasn't it?
Well, the only other club that's been linked with him since then is Tranmere, and they've just signed Liam Feeney from Blackpool today.
Yes,
so I'd imagine they're probably not going to be after Devitt. It seems we're the only club after him. Maybe the question's here, well, why are we the only club after him? Maybe the only club who can afford him, maybe. I don't know in the circumstances.
Yeah, true.
There is a gaping hole in that midfield for creativity. I don't really buy it from Beach. I know Alessandro can play as that number 10 just off a striker. I think he's a useful squad player to have, but I wouldn't want him starting every week. I think you can do better than that, personally. So whether it is Devitt we go for, I don't know. But we need to get a midfielder in who can do that similar role. That's basically what we need. Definitely. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I suppose one positive we can take from the Cambridge game was it was good to see Patrick and Coyote back in the team, and both getting 90 minutes under their belt as well was a really positive sign.
Yeah, they didn't get too many minutes pre-season, did they, because of niggles and whatnot, and they'll maybe take 2 or 3 games to get up to speed, but definitely one of the few pluses from the Cambridge game was the fact that they did play.
Another good performance as well from Toure on the left as well. I think he looks a real find. I mean, for me, if he has another good game this weekend, Holdsworth should be getting him in his office on Monday morning and getting him to sign an extended deal, because I think we saw with Hartlepool, they lost him because they had a 1-year deal with him. Let's not make the same mistake. Let's get him tied down, because he looks a real... I know it's an easy comparison to make because he's a sort of attacking midfielder, left winger, French football upbringing. He does remind me a lot of Zoka in the way he plays, but I think actually he works a lot harder than Zoka from the games I've seen so far. He tracks back quite a lot, and sometimes you actually think you don't need to track back every time, get yourself forward. So I think he's going to be a really big player for us this season from what I've seen. Yeah,
early signs have been encouraging, and I've actually seen him in the little Asda at St Nicholas a couple of times getting his shopping, so he's obviously moved up to the area, and no, he definitely looks excited.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of attack, just one more quick thing to mention. Gavin Riley obviously featured in the early games, but he hasn't, well, obviously in the first game, but he's been on the bench the last 2. Came on against Oldham, caused a few problems, didn't feature against Cambridge. Do I have this horrible feeling that he's going to end up being one of these players that we just don't use properly? Because it just seems a bit of a weird one.
I think I said this to you on WhatsApp the other week, didn't I? You know, I'm a big fan of Gavin Riley. He's a player I thought we should have went for when he left Queen of the South, as they had 2 or 3 players at the time who would all have done a job for us. And I don't know if the way we play maybe suits him at the moment, but I would hope in time that he's not just, left to sort of 10, 15 minutes. It actually reminds me of when Sean Miller first came to the club. I was just thinking
about that. He's a very similar sort of player,
isn't he? Yeah, similar sort of player. Got the experience, but just never really got that run. And I think he's one of those, if he did get a couple of games and got a goal, he'd get a few more. But no, it's still early days, and we've got to see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I think I was going to give a little mention about, is it too early to judge Farman based on the defensive performance? But I think we sort of agree on that one, that you can't really judge the keeper this early because the defence has looked a little bit shaky so far. Okay, Stan, so I think we've gone on long enough about those 2 games. Hopefully a clean slate and a fresh start this weekend. So we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, it'll be time to talk about this weekend's game, the home fixture against Southend United. Welcome back, everyone. We're into part 2 now, and it's time to look ahead to this weekend's game against Southend United. Second bottom versus bottom in an early 6-pointer. I jest, of course, but it is a big game for Beach, actually, Dan, isn't it? Because we saw last weekend, Southend look like they're in a real mess right now, and if we can't beat them, alarm bells might start to ring.
Yeah, I mean, Southend were absolutely atrocious in League One last year. Even the wonder boy, Sol Campbell, couldn't do anything when he came in. They just lost week after week after week. I know they've had a bit of trouble within the club. I don't think they're in the best of shape. And let's be honest, they're probably favourites for relegation. They're that bad a team. And like I mentioned earlier, it's the ideal fixture for us to hopefully put things right.
Especially at home and in front of a crowd as well.
Yeah, you would hope so. I will just put in the customary cautionary note that this is Carlisle United, and we have a horrid habit of being the first team to lose against these sort of teams on runs.
Exactly.
But if we do this Saturday, then serious questions will be asked.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned there, obviously, the fact that they lost 4-0 to newly promoted Harrogate last weekend. I watched the YouTube highlights earlier. Oh my god, the defending was absolutely...
Comical, isn't it?
Well, our defending wasn't that bad for some of the goals. I mean, the third one, obviously, we were done on the break a little bit, and there's a little bit of poor defending, but nothing like...
No.
I mean, the fourth goal is just comical. The third one was bad enough. They all just stood watching while a player was lying down in the area for some reason, and then the first couple as well, they just stood off the men in the area, and it seems as well the left back position seems to be an area we could target. So you'd imagine Toure and Patrick might be looking forward to facing up to
you would
that
hope
side.
so. Yeah,
you'd hope so. Yeah. So Southend made only 3 signings this summer. They decided not to re-sign Jack Bridge after his trial spell. I wonder if he regrets not signing that deal with us now, Dan, because he's struggling to find himself a club, isn't he?
Yeah. Did we not say he was possibly linked with Stevenage after leaving Southend? But
possibly. Yeah.
I've not seen anything.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Just a very strange sort of decision not to sign a deal. It was a really poor deal. That's the only thing I can think of. But there you go. But they've actually added 2 more today. They've re-signed popular former defender Alan McCormack, who was part of the Northampton team that went up from the playoffs last season. And they've also brought in Barnet striker Simeon Akinola. Now, Akinola's not particularly prolific, but interesting fact, he was actually sent off in his last visit to Brunton Park. When he was playing for Barnet for a studs-up tackle on Michael Rains. I remember that one.
I remember that.
And it was a particularly nasty one as well.
Yeah.
Barnet still managed to get a late equaliser, but that's just typical of that season, I think. So McCormick's an interesting signing, isn't it? Good experienced head to add to their squad, because they do actually. It's an interesting fact that they have the 3rd youngest average age of squad in the division. Only ourselves, Cal United and Scunthorpe, have got younger squads on average than us. So adding a 36-year-old, especially one with so many appearances under his belt, to the squad, probably a good move for them.
Yeah, I mean, when you look through his list, he actually started at Preston, which I didn't realise.
I remember he was there. Yeah.
Yeah, Southend, Charlton, Swindon, Brentford, Luton. As you say, played a few games for Northampton last season, and he is exactly what they need. Like, as we just mentioned about their performance at the weekend, it was diabolical, and he's exactly what they need.
Yeah, you do wonder though, obviously not having had a pre-season, I don't know if he's been on trial anywhere or anything like that. You'd imagine with an experienced head like that, you'd probably just throw him in the team, wouldn't you, and just know that he'll be able to coach himself through the game effectively, wouldn't you, I'd have thought.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see whether we sort of almost target him for pace and have Coyote playing off him, maybe, possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, and Akinola is one of those who he sort of flits. He's one of those that flits between a National League level and sort of lower League too. You know, I mean, he played a lot of games for Harrogate, Braintree, Barnet, and he's scored a few goals. But is he League 2 level?
Not sure. But he's more of a wide player actually when you look at his performances. So probably not the best to judge him on goals, but another body into their squad, obviously.
Just a quick note: he has a degree in systems engineering, apparently.
Does he?
Yes.
Well, there you go. He's sorted for himself if his football career doesn't work out. That's quite a rare one, isn't it? It's usually sports science, something like that, isn't it? So, fair play to the lad. The big thing Southend as well at the moment is they've got big off-the-field problems as much as on the field, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, obviously, on Wednesday this week, they actually had a winding-up order from HMRC over a just under £500,000 debt adjourned until the 28th of October. Now, they are planning to move. They've been planning to move into a new ground for, I think, probably as long as I've been supporting Carlisle. They've been doing that 20, 25 years to Fossett's Farm, I think it is. And the plan is Root Hall will be demolished and about 500 houses will be built on the site, which would help basically fund all their issues that they're having and build a new ground. But there's a real danger for them. They could actually slip through the leagues, isn't there?
Yeah, they're a strange club, Southend, because, you know, when I first started watching football, they were a solid championship club for a few years, and they've suffered a lot from losing people to West Ham. I know it's still a little way out, but there's a massive West Ham following in the Southend area. I know West Ham have club shops in Southend, for instance, and they're just sort of, that doesn't help them, but they've just been a mess for a while now. Like you say, that those ground plans have definitely been as long as our Blue Yonder ones. if not longer.
I'm sure. I remember it in about 2001, 2002. That's the first time I remember. And I remember specifically the words Fossett's Farms being mentioned as the location. So it's clearly been a long ongoing thing, and their fans, and they still get a good crowd. They got crowds of 6,000 last season in League One, which is pretty decent. And anyone who's been to Bruton will tell you it's an absolute dump of a ground. It is essentially they've bolted seats onto very tight old terraces.
That away end is awful. There's no room whatsoever in it.
And some of the seats are pretty much eye line is pretty much pitch level, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not great. What they have done this summer, so you mentioned Sol Campbell's in charge last season. He couldn't keep them up and decided to depart. They appointed Mark Molesley as manager. Now, he actually did a really good job at Weymouth, didn't he? He got them promoted 2 seasons in a row up into the National League now. But I think he faces a pretty tough challenge in Essex.
Yeah, did they not give him a 3-year contract?
Yes, we mentioned this in the season preview. Yeah, if you haven't listened to it, go and give it a listen.
Yeah, it's all very strange. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's clearly been doing the business in non-league, but it is a step up, a 3-year deal at a bit of a crisis club. It's going to be interesting how it pans out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does. It's one of those ones, though, for him, he probably looks at that and he's done a good job to get Weymouth to the National League, but Southend is so much bigger club than Weymouth. And with definitely the issues off the field, he might be given a bit more time, especially if they give him a 3-year deal. They must clearly think he's capable of doing something in the long run. But yeah, so let's move quickly on to the team news. So for Carlisle, it sounds like Aaron Hayden should be fit for the game. It's hard to sort of judge from what Beach was saying, but he seems confident that he'll be able to play.
Yeah.
Brennan Dickinson is obviously the one that's still out long-term injured. We had a little bit of an update on Josh Dixon as well, didn't we? Sounds like he's pretty much recovered from the ACL side of things, but as is always the case with these sort of injuries,
it'll be the rest of the body adjusting to training again. Won't
it? It's just a slight thigh strain, and they're hoping that he'll be back and raring in a couple of weeks, maybe by the sound of things. But it'd be great to see him back out on the pitch soon. And as you mentioned before, Dan, it sounds like Dean Furman could possibly feature on the bench this weekend.
I actually thought it sounded like he could play full stop, but. We'll see.
To be honest, the way we played last couple of games, Beach might be looking and thinking, I need to put him in there. It could be a bit of a problem. Southend, I struggled to find a bit of information about their team news, to be honest with you. All I've got is the fact that the 2 new signings could feature, and I'd imagine Molesley, if he could change the whole team, probably would do this weekend because they weren't particularly great. Okay, Dan, so that's rounded up sort of the team news bit. Not much to say there. Let's have some predictions.
I'm going to go for a sketchy 2-0 win. So I think we'll score in the first half and then we'll seal it in about the 80th minute.
Okay. Scorers?
Callum Guy and Gimme 2 there.
Oh, very good, very good. Okay, well, I'm going to go for a 3-0 win. I think we'll get a nice early goal, maybe get a second one about half an hour in, and then I think Southend will probably push forward, try and get in a goal back, and we'll later on get a third goal. I'm going scorers of Toure. Who else should we go for? Patrick. And I reckon as well Riley might get one as a late sub. That's my predictions. There you go. I'm going a bit left field there, but that's the way it is. Okay, I think that's rounded up the Southend preview stuff. So let's do our usual update on ex-Carl United players. First up, 2 of the lads who were let go last season have now found clubs. First one, not really a massive surprise. He was on trial there. He's already acting the prat by the looks of things, going on some of his Instagram posts the other day. Harry McCurdy has signed for Port Vale. No massive surprise there, Dan, really.
No,
as soon as he went on trial there, I thought he was going to get a deal.
The lad lives in the Stoke area, doesn't he? So it's ideal for him. And he set up their goal in, was it Fleetwood that got beat by in the League Cup?
I'm not sure.
I think it was Fleetwood, but I know McCurdy set the goal up, so he's up and running for Port Vale. Port Vale are getting a hell of a collection of ex-Carlisle players, aren't they?
Oh, incredible. It's just never seen anything like it, have they, for a long time?
Yeah.
In the same way we're building up a nice collection of ex-Bradford players.
Yes.
But yes, so Harry McCurdy signed at Port Vale. The one that was a little bit of a surprise was Byron Webster has joined National League side Bromley. Well, I say it's a little bit of a surprise, but he's obviously got strong connections down that way because he was at Millwall, wasn't he? And it seems that might have something a little bit to do with it.
I mean, when he signed for us, he'd mentioned, I mean, is it Harrogate he's from? somewhere around there.
I think it's near Wetherby. I think it's north of
North Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And obviously a move to Carlisle made sense because he was a lot nearer home. But is it Alan Dunn is that involved at Bromley?
That would explain then, because he was at Millwall, wasn't he?
Yeah. And I know when he signed for them, I looked and he did mention the manager that done his mate Byron Webster. He's been at Bromley for 2 or 3 years actually. Alan Dunn. I've just had a quick look while we were talking there. So
yeah, but no, I think it's a good move for them. I think he could be a good player at that level still. But yeah, it's a little bit surprised he didn't get a league club, but maybe it's just the current circumstances, just the way it is, I guess.
Now, one that I found yesterday.
Yeah, go on, you go this one.
I as some people know, I absolutely love obscure European football, and I was.
You love the early rounds of the qualifying
absolutely
Champions League and Europa,
love them. And I was keeping an eye on Total Network Solutions, as it used to be called, TNS. They were playing.
Saints.
Yes, they were playing at B36 in the Faroe Islands, and it went to penalties. And you shouldn't do this, but I managed to find a stream for it. And the penalty shootout was just starting, so I watched it. And ex-loanee from Wigan, Danny Redmond, was taking the last penalty, which he had saved, which meant that TNS went out. So just a little random one, which follows from Basti and Heddy playing in for Linfield.
And Lewis Brass and Craig Curran playing for, was it Connors Key, I think it was?
Yeah.
The earlier rounds as well. Speaking
of Heddy, he's actually playing right now for Linfield. They're actually getting beat at half-time off Floriana from Malta, which is a bad result. So
that's not a great result for them, is it? But yeah, interesting. I quite like Redmond, actually. I thought he was a decent little player in a pretty poor team, actually.
He was one of those who he obviously got a bit of football at us, and we thought he would come back here, but it never happened, and he went to Hamilton, didn't he?
Yeah, he had quite a few years there, didn't he?
Yeah, 2 or 3 seasons, yeah.
Okay, let's look at a bit further back for another ex-Blues on the move. I really like this one. Mike shared this one with us. I actually had seen it, but I'd forgotten about it. David Raven has made the move from Cheshire back into Merseyside, and from Warrington Town he's joined Marine FC in the same league as Workington. I think he was Warrington's player this season, or one of the players of the season in Warrington's league last season, I think.
Yeah, David Raven was a player I liked when he was at Carlisle, whether at right back or centre back. And
I think he plays centre back these days.
I was a bit disappointed when he left us, and he was a bit of a legend up at Inverness because he had several years there, and I think they won a couple of things while he was there. He's fondly remembered up in the Highlands.
Did he win the Scottish Cup there with Richie Forrard, I think?
Possibly. Something like that,
so good move for David. I think he must be about 36 now, is he, or something like that?
Yeah, he will be,
He'll be getting on a bit, but it's, very, very good signing for Marine. Always tend to do quite well in Workington's league. Next up, this one came a bit out of the blue, didn't it? John Sheridan. Didn't last very long at Waterford, did he?
No.
But not really surprised because he got offered the Wigan job and he's taken it.
But in his few weeks in Waterford, he managed to
piss everyone off, didn't he?
Basically called it a farmers' league or something, and you're terrible. You need to sort yourselves out. So I don't think he'll be fondly remembered.
No, he's not one to mince his words, is he, Sheridan? In fairness to him, remember when we beat Oldham 6-0. In the post-match interview, he was basically just fuming how bad we were. I was like, "Guys, lighten up, you miserable sod!" It's just like, at that point, we obviously didn't realise that he was on the verge of leaving us to go to Chesterfield. So it explains a lot, really. I mean, that didn't look a smart move at the time, but it's come around quite well for him, hasn't it?
Yeah,
getting
definitely.
a Wigan job.
Yeah.
Although obviously there's still a bit of a basket case off the field. You'd back him to do a pretty decent job and keep them at least in League One and maybe challenging mid-table playoffs.
Yeah,
it
depends how quick this sale goes through, because every time you put like Sky Sports News on, there's another consortium in or out, and they really need. I know they're still recruiting players. I think when they played the first game, there was one player who played in the last game last season, and that was
Joe Garner,
possibly. But you're only talking 6 or 8 weeks difference because they obviously played a bit later.
You'd imagine the only reason Joe Garner's not left him is because he's got a contract there, obviously, and at his age, it's probably difficult to get him shifted on the wage he's on, I guess. But
I wouldn't say no to him back up here.
Oh, definitely. But I imagine we probably can't afford him right now.
No.
Okay, and the final one, we're going to look at 3 ex-youth products who are playing in the top flight now. First up, little mention, Jared Branthwaite, featured in the Everton's 3-0 cup win against Salford City. Was it last night, I think it was?
Yeah, last night.
Picked up an injury, though, after about 23 minutes. A little bit of a worry for him.
Seemingly possibly went over on his ankle, and I think they're just waiting to sort of probably a little bit of swelling and give it a scan. And obviously at that level, they'll have all the scanning machines on site at the training grounds. Hopefully only short term for the boy.
Yeah. And then obviously next we've got a couple of goalkeepers. Let's first up talk about the really positive one. Good news is, for him at least, Mark Gillespie made his debut for Newcastle United in a win over Blackburn in the Cup. Really nice to see him do well, actually.
When Gillespie went to Newcastle, there seemed to be an expectation he'd be third choice, but by all accounts, he seems to be second choice. Following, I assume he's done well in training, etc.
I think Dubravka's got an injury, which might explain why he's there at the moment. Carl Darlow started the season as first choice with Gillespie on the bench. But by all accounts, he had a good game. In the Cup. And,
one of the North East sports reporters I follow on Twitter said that, he's come full circle and he was probably his man of the match on the night. So, well done to him.
It was a really lovely touch as well, wasn't it? Because I think it was... I can't remember how many years, but a number of years since the passing of one of his former teammates when he was in Newcastle's academy before he came to us, who passed away. And I think it was the Toma Fund, wasn't it, that he was a patron of? And I think he gave a little mention after. It was just he felt how proud he was of the fact that he'd finally made it and done what they both set out to do. It was really, really nice touch.
Good.
And obviously the last one, you dropped this one on, Dan. It's a really good point, actually. Is Dean Henderson finally going to make his Manchester United debut and make us a bit of Wonga? Well, the thing is, they've got a League Cup game next week, haven't they, I think, as well?
Yeah.
So there's every chance he's going to feature in either the League game or the League Cup game, you'd think.
I would. If he doesn't start the League game, I'd be amazed if he doesn't start the League Cup game.
Yeah. I think Romero's on his way out, isn't he?
I'd love to know the wording of the actual deal, but I consider a debut to be any competition that's first team. So.
I think it's a first team competition generally with that one, but it might be that we get more when he makes his league debut. I don't know. But
further talking about debuts for him, obviously he was in the last England squad. Didn't play because there were 2 qualifiers, but the next 2 international windows, England actually have triple headers. They play a friendly, then 2 Nations League games. I think they play Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday in both windows. And him and Nick Pope are going to need to play games. Yeah. So it would be zero surprise to maybe see them play a half each in the friendlies.
Oh, we can only hope. We can only hope, can't we? And a little bit more Wonga coming into Brunton Park. And to be honest, in the times they are, and obviously there's a risk that they may suddenly stop letting fans into games, and that puts clubs at risk. It actually puts us in a pretty good position, as terrible that is for other clubs. Yeah. Potentially that money could keep us safe, really.
Yeah, but it's not an insignificant sum, is it, by all accounts? I mean, It's never been confirmed by the club, but people close to his family out west have indicated it could be 7 figures for each. So
yeah, fantastic if it is, really. I mean,
definitely
brilliant for the club. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this episode, Dan. Thanks as ever for your time.
No problem.
We're hoping to get an episode out early next week, which what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and record something on the day and give people a bit of a flavour of the experience of going to the game in the current conditions. So I'll be taking my handy dictaphone up with me.
If you see 2 of us acting shifty a metre or so apart with a recording device, it'll just be us 2 recording. So I'll come and say hello if you see us.
Yeah, I'll have a big long stick like when Vic and Bob with the man with the stick. I'll put a funny hat on as well just to make it look the part. So what we'll be doing is I'll record a few bits on my way up, just chatting about what it's like because I'll be coming up on the train. And then obviously before the game we'll meet up and stand a metre apart.
Yes.
Record our thoughts on what it's like actually to go to the match, and obviously after the game catch up quickly as well just to discuss that too. So that's the plan. Hopefully we'll get that early next week out. We're also aiming to get some of the special episodes recorded soon. I keep saying it, but it's just a case of getting ourselves together, really, isn't it? Because we want to make sure these time sensitive ones are done when we can.
Yeah, because it changes so fast, doesn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, exactly that. And obviously as well, I mentioned this on Twitter, but I've been sent an advanced copy of, obviously I say advanced, obviously it's out now on sale, John Coleman's Bolts from the Blues book. Only had a chance to read a few chapters so far, but it's a really fascinating read. Would highly recommend you get it based on those few chapters.
Yeah, I'll just add that it's on sale in either the club shop or Bookends in Carlisle. So
yeah.
And I think Bookends actually have signed copies, so if you want John's signature with it,
yep,
there you go.
Get yourself a copy. But what I'll be doing actually I'll be sitting down and having a chat with John at some point, talking about the book and basically just a little chat about all things Cal United as well, hopefully. So hoping to do that next couple of weeks, depending on John's availability. And that's about it, I think. So yeah, if you've got any comments or feedback, or there's anything you'd like to suggest we discuss, please send them in via Twitter to @BruntonBugle or by email to bruntonbugle@gmail.com. We haven't had too many in yet, but please send them in. We really want to talk about what you want to talk about as well, as much as anything. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast via all good podcast apps, including Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Please do also give us a review. We'd really appreciate the excellent feedback we've had so far. This is the point where I always give a little mention as well to the countries people have been listening in. We've only got one new country this time. It's Sweden. So the Swedish lads have joined the game. So thanks very much to whoever's
I'm personally hoping it's Zlatan deciding to spend his last year at Carlisle next season. But
yeah, just doing a bit of research ahead of his big move, hopefully. But yeah, we're still not had any in South Africa. All these lads on the Cal United Facebook, you're claiming you can spot in Carlisle now because Dean Furman's here. You're not listening to our podcast. Where you at? Give us a listen. Okay, that sums it all up. Thanks again, Dan. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.